Don't you always feel better after a good glass of wine with a girlfriend? Me too. That's what we're here for. To connect, to drink wine, to feel good. Welcome to the Happy Moms Wine Club. I'm your host, Jenny Angel. If you have little ones in the room with you today, you may want to put your earbuds in because from time to time, I will use swear words or drop a truth bomb about motherhood that you may not want little ears to hear. So grab your earbuds and put them in because today, I'll do both. When I was little, my two older brothers fought like crazy. The oldest one would pin the middle one down by sitting on his chest and pushing down on his shoulders. Then he'd slowly lower a huge loogie down out of his mouth and try to suck it up right before it landed on my middle brother's face. He didn't always succeed. It seemed like each brother's goal in life was to make the other one miserable. They'd call each other horrible names. They'd wrestle and punch and hit each other violently, not playfully. It was awful. They hated each other 30 years ago when we were kids, and I'm pretty sure they'd still hate each other now. I don't know for sure, I'm speculating. All I know is that we haven't seen each other in decades, and I don't think that'll change anytime soon. Sad, right? I don't know if this is something that you can relate to or if it's something totally foreign to you, but I'd say that this is one of the most significant childhood experiences that I had that has impacted my parenting today. Do you have those situations from your childhood where you look back at them and think, that sucked? I'm never doing that with my kids. My relationship with my siblings was that for me. When my hubby and I decided to have kids, we both knew we wanted our family to be significantly different from the ones we grew up in. Our childhood homes had a lot of drama, lots of divorces, lots of anger and sadness. We hated it. Instead of going on autopilot and perpetuating the same cycle of brokenness, we chose to create a family environment of love and peace and laughter. This morning as my daughter Maija left for school, she gave her brother Tyler a big hug. "I love you, Maija. Have a great day," he said to her. "I love you too," she replied. That is our life. Every day there's love present between our two kids. They're not just going through the motions or doing something that we force them to do. They genuinely love each other. On today's episode, I'm going to share with you how we created that. As you listen today, please don't feel like crap if your kids' relationship with each other is not like Tyler and Maija's relationship with each other. It's normal for kids to bicker. It's normal for siblings to have rivalry. What we've created is rare. It's different. But I share it with you because I want you to know it's possible. So if it's something that you'd like to create, you can. If it sounds awful and not like something that would suit you and your loved ones, that's okay. I'll do me, you do you. But if you're a young mom and you still have the opportunity to create on a clean slate what you'd like your children's relationship to be like, this conversation could make a huge difference for you. Listening to this could mean the difference between suffering through years of bickering and sibling rivalry or creating a lifelong relationship of love and connectedness in what we call the peace place. I'll tell you more about that soon, but first I need to tell you about one of my relationship fails that got me to where I am today. 20 years ago, when I was 18, I met my future husband in college. I just left my childhood home in Minnesota for the first time, and I had lived through 6 or 7 of my family's destructive marriages and divorces by then, so the walls around my heart were impenetrably high, and the attitude that I advertised was, I'm never getting married and I'm never having kids. It was not a subtle point I was making. Enter Chris Angel, also damaged goods from heartbreak after heartbreak in his relationships. Guess what? He too had sworn off dating. I'm tempted to say blah, blah, blah. Long story short, we got married right before my senior year and lived happily ever after. But not only would that be a tragically lame story, I'd be gypping you of the juiciest detail that I promised to share. So allow me to back up. We became friends. No dating allowed. Friendship felt safe. One night I was upset. I don't remember why I was upset, but I do remember how I handled being upset. I got really quiet. This is how I handled conflict when I was a child. I lived in such an unpredictable environment that if something bothered me, I'd completely clam up. The energy I emitted and my body language would scream, there's definitely something wrong. But I wouldn't talk. My parents hated this. They'd ask me, what's wrong? And I'm sure they longed desperately to help me, but I was always so afraid that whatever I had to say would only make everything worse that I never felt safe enough to share. So when I was with Chris at college and I got really quiet, you'd think that the conversation would have gone similarly to how I had it go in my childhood. I'd clam up. He'd try exhaustively to pull something out of me. He'd give up eventually and our friendship would end. That would have been predictable, but that's not what happened. What Chris did differently blew my mind and became a turning point in our life. He said, I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. Whatever you're thinking and feeling is okay. No matter what it is, I'm not going to be mad about it. I just want you to share whatever you're thinking out loud so that we can interact with it together. Slowly, I shared. Patiently, he listened. By the time I was done talking and had shared everything I was afraid to say, he'd made it clear that he really is a safe person to talk to. The bottom line of our conversation was that I would share a fear I had that was making me withdrawn in our relationship, and he didn't get mad. He understood how I could be afraid after watching all the relationships in my past fail. The fear melted away as he gently pointed out that I'm not my mom, and he's not my dad, and our relationship doesn't have to end in suffering. We get to create whatever we want. He was the first person in my life that helped me to create what I want in a relationship, rather than getting stuck worrying about what I was afraid might happen and causing that. I felt more freedom and peace in that one conversation that I had ever felt in my life. We called that feeling the peace place. So how did I teach our kids about the peace place? Good question. I'm almost there. Before I tell you, let me create some context so you understand why we did what we did. If somebody asked me what is the most important thing I want to teach my kids to give them a chance at a happy and successful life, do you know what I'd say? I wouldn't say how to get into an Ivy League school, or how to get rich, or even how to maintain health and fitness, even though those are great skills to have. I'd say I want to teach them how to successfully resolve conflict. I believe that our relationships with loved ones will be the greatest cause of joy or suffering in our whole life, and I want my kids to be equipped with a lifetime of practice before they ever get married in how to see things from another person's point of view and be able to empathize and take responsibility for how their actions have impacted another. That, I believe, will be my greatest success as a mom. Setting my kids up to have healthy, loving, peaceful relationships. So how did we create that? Here's an example from this past weekend. I was frustrated in my relationship with Maija. We'd gotten into a downward spiral of communication the last 3 Saturdays when she wasn't meeting my expectations for having a clean room, cleaning her bathroom, getting dressed, eating breakfast, and brushing her teeth by a certain time on Saturday morning. I know it sounds like a lot, but these things seem pretty basic to me and are important to me. I have peace of mind when they're done, and when they're not, it drives me nuts. I'm not one of those moms that can handle kids in pajamas all day being lazy and not contributing to the overall running of the household. That makes me feel taken advantage of, and like all I do for them is not appreciated. So before my kids can have a play date or leave the house on the weekend, these basic needs of mine need to be met. For the last 3 weeks, Maija has tried to exercise a loophole in the agreement by not leaving the house on the weekend. Like, see, you said I have to have it done before I could have a play date or go anywhere, but I'm not going anywhere. Which gave her no deadline for getting anything we agreed upon done, and gave me no peace of mind, so I became bitchy. This morning I realized how every time I talked to her, I was asking her to clean something or do something to meet my long list of needs that was not being met, that she didn't want to do, and the tension between us was mounting. Finally, I decided we needed a peace-place conversation. I was sick of this negative pattern that was forming because I don't like being the bitch that nags. That's not who I am. I went up to her room and I said, I'd like to talk. She walked away from me, went to a different room, and started watching TV. I know that was a big F you, but I've been having conversations like this with her long enough that I know not to let her body language or rudeness at the beginning trigger me. It's normal for her to act bitchy toward me when I've been bitchy toward her. I simply have to ignore how that felt and ask for what I need. I went to the room where she was watching TV and I said, I asked you if we could talk and you walked away from me and started watching TV. I know you're upset and don't want to talk to me right now, but I want to get to the other side of this because I don't like fighting with you every Saturday. Will you please pause the TV and come to your room? Then I walked away and waited for her in her bedroom. She came in and sat down at the edge of her bed with her back to me. Again, it was important not to let body language trigger me when I'm trying to create the peace place. Of course, she's going to be bad at eye contact or turning her body away from me. She's mad. That's understandable body language. Anyway, I said, I can understand if you're mad at me for being so bitchy on the weekend and always reminding you what to do next. I'd imagine it's frustrating when I'm always telling you what needs to be done. I'm sorry that we've gotten into this pattern of being annoyed with each other and not wanting to be with each other. I'm talking to you about it right now because I want to break the pattern. I don't want to feel mad at you and be a bitchy mom. I want to get my needs met and feel like our conversations are fun and they're about what we can do to enjoy one another's company on the weekend, not about what cleaning has or hasn't been done. I love you, and I don't want to make you feel like I'm upset with you all the time. I'd way rather we get on the same page about what our needs are so that we can have fun together. Then I said, I'm sorry if making a detailed list that I made that upset you, because I'd made this really long list of everything I expected to be done on weekends, including make your bed, showering, dressing, brushing teeth, eating breakfast by 9, putting clothes away, feeding the dog, cleaning your bathroom, and picking up the dog poop from the backyard. That seemed like a pretty basic list to me. She said, I know what your needs are and expectations. Do you know mine? I was thinking to myself, I have a pretty good idea of what you need. But for the sake of being open and trusting the process of this conversation and being a safe space for her, I said, I would love to know what your needs are. Your needs are important to me. What are your needs, Mai? She said, I need until 3. Meaning, I need until 3 p.m. on a Saturday to get stuff done before you're allowed to ask me if I've done anything. I counteroffered. I don't know if 3 p.m. is going to work for me. I really need to know that you've eaten and showered much earlier than that. How about 10 a.m., I said. She said, what if I don't get up until 9? I need until 11. I can get everything done by 11, and I need you to not ask me about anything until after that. That sounds like a good deal, Mai, I said. That would make a big difference for me, and I really appreciate it. That'll help me to get my needs met and be able to be the kind of mom that you enjoy doing things with. I'm sorry we got into that pattern of being upset with each other every weekend. That's not what I want for us. Thank you for having this conversation with me so that we can move forward and both get our needs met. I'm excited to be able to connect and have fun doing things together that we both love, rather than fighting and wasting time being mad at each other. She said, me too. And as she did, she started picking up the cups that had collected on her windowsill and cleaning up stuff that was on her bedroom floor. Then she came close so I could hug her, and I pulled her onto the bed to lay in my arms, and she hugged me and snuggled me. We lay on her bed for about an hour after that, just chatting and connecting. It felt so good to be connected and feel loving again. That's how we created the peace place that day. Every conversation is different, of course, but we've had conversations like this from the time the kids were really little until now. The most important parts of the conversation are creating a safe place to talk, seeing things from the other person's point of view, validating their feelings, apologizing for hurting them, and creating a plan for the future so that both parties can get their needs met. As you can imagine, this looked a lot different when both our kids were little, but we've had conversations like this with them from the time they could speak until now. Not every day, just when we ran into conflict. So how did we start this conversation? When Tyler and Maija were both old enough to understand, so probably around 4 and 5 years old, we sat them down and told them, look, your relationship as brother and sister is going to be different from the other sibling relationships that you see your friends have. Sometimes you'll see your friends be mean to their siblings and try to hurt them on purpose or make them feel bad, and that's not how we're going to do things in our house. You guys are going to practice loving each other and being in a relationship that works. You're going to do this because it will teach you how to treat the people in your life with love and respect and kindness, and most importantly, it'll be good practice for being in relationships that work. So the rules in our house are different. You're not allowed to be mean to each other or hurt each other on purpose. You guys get to be friends. You get to encourage one another, and you get to say kind things to each other. You'll play nicely together, and you'll help each other. If something happens that makes you feel hurt or get upset, we're going to talk about it until we get to the peace place and we can be loving and kind to each other again. Do you understand? They said yes, and that's where our journey began. Every time somebody was upset about losing chutes and ladders or not getting as much juice in their cup as their sibling, if it got ugly, we'd talk it out. We'd always sit on the stairs to resolve our conflict, because it forced us to sit close together and shoulder to shoulder. That body language simply meant that we were in this together and the problem was something outside of us that we'd work on. Then I'd facilitate a conversation where they got into each other's world and looked at the situation from the other person's point of view. You know how most parents play the quiet game at some point with their kids? For a while, we played a game called The First Person to Apologize Wins. You laugh, but it really is true in life. Every conflict has 2 people involved, and each person has a part in what caused the conflict that they can own. The first person to take responsibility for whatever they contributed to the conflict really does win. They feel peaceful, they feel freedom, they're happy faster, and most importantly, they're no longer stuck. It's a great game to play. So what my kids know better than most adults is that it feels really good to own your shit and apologize for wherever you've hurt someone. The peace on the other side of conversations like that is astonishing. Their relationship was built on practicing getting to the peace place with each other whenever there was conflict. That's why they're friends. That's why they truly love each other. That's why I'm confident that they'll be able to have really healthy and peaceful relationships in the future, because they've been practicing on each other for the last decade and it's working. I have to admit that when Tyler and Maija were younger, it was easier for me at times to just avoid conflict rather than mediate all the time, so we did do things that were easier to be collaborative and teamwork oriented rather than games that were competitive and would cause more fights. We did 1,000-piece puzzles together, so we had a common goal. We'd play ping pong and see how long we could keep a volley going rather than trying to keep score and crush our opponent. We actually changed the rules to games on more than one occasion so that they were competing with each other rather than against each other. We decided that we get to make up our own rules in life and it doesn't have to be what everybody else is doing. If your childhood was filled with as much sibling rivalry as mine was, but you didn't think anything of it, my hope is that this conversation today gave you a glimpse of something that's possible, and you'd choose what you want to create for your family rather than just letting history repeat itself. As Tyler and Maija have gotten older, they've gone to many other people's houses, and they're shocked by how mean siblings can be to each other. Tyler comes home and says to me, "Thank you for teaching Maija and I about the peace place. I'm really glad we're friends and that we get along." That alone makes me happy that we chose a different path. Here, have some more wine. If you'd like to be notified each time we release a new podcast episode so you don't miss out on any of these conversations, hit subscribe now in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from. I would love to hear your mom stories and connect with you on our Happy Moms Wine Club Facebook page too. Tell me what made you laugh in a certain podcast or what else you'd love to hear about. If you want to join our actual Happy Moms Wine Club and learn about how to get amazing wine delivered to your doorstep for free, go to happymomswineclub.com now. See you next week.